It is a first down. Pirates.
You can paint this one purple. What an incredible win by the ECU Pirates.
What's going on, Pirate Nation? Welcome into Blackbeard's Alley, a Pirate football podcast. East Carolina goes to Philadelphia. 45-14 winners over the Temple Owls. The Pirates were playing their first game in 16 days, so there were a lot of intangibles and variables that we were a little bit concerned about going into this matchup. But, man, did the Pirates play their most complete game of the year, rolling up over 600 yards of offense, running for nearly 360 yards, as you see there on the screen. And we'll take a look at this game as well as what lies ahead, because the Pirates have done a great job of putting themselves in position where they can play a lot of meaningful football here in these final 4 games of the season in the month of November. But without any further ado, let me welcome in my co-host, Jason Tyndall. Jason, how are you?
Hey, Bubba. Glad to be back after a week of business travel that got in the way of the prep for the Temple game. And I just have to say, as a diehard ECU fan like yourself, it was a nice Saturday afternoon watching the Pirates play and went up in a place. It's not easy to play. It's kind of like the old Superdome and when Tulane was playing there, and not much of an atmosphere. But gosh knows, I couldn't be more happy about our trajectory of where we're heading right now as far as the program.
Yeah, before we dive into some of the specifics and the way this game unfolded, going into the game, I mentioned in the lead-in there in the open to the podcast, just the 16-day layoff. Much was made of that, and I guess rightfully so. A Saturday game for the first time since the BYU game in 6 weeks, way back on September 20th. We were playing a day game for the first time in the entire season, and then you obviously also have that variable of going to Lincoln Financial Field, where there's going to be, they may announce the attendance at 15 to 20,000, but if you're talking about what's truly there, you're probably looking about 5,000 fans in a 65,000 seat stadium. What did you make of all those things going into this Temple matchup?
Well, let me back up a second and just say, since Blake Harrell's took over our program, I'm as a former football coach, beyond impressed with his preparation and his mindset. Because in the past, the empty stadium, all these variables that we're talking about, 16-day layoff, we would lose tempo, we would lose focus, we would lose the juice that he brings. And I feel like his personality and his ability to relate to the players showed up yesterday. And, we had a big crowd at my house watching the game, ECU alumni and fans. And it was just nice to watch a presented team show up and play a tricky game against a really good team. No matter what our fan base wants to think, Temple's capable of beating ECU on any given Saturday, and also doing it when we've been, somewhat hamstrung by the conference with our schedule and the time of day, et cetera. So I'll just say I couldn't be more excited about where Coach Harrell has us heading, and our team and our players and our effort is second to none.
Yeah, in the post game, Blake Harrell made mention of how the Temple team, you heard Coach Casey Keeler in his weekly press conference say that they were looking at that as a 50-50 game. And I'm sure if he came out and said that, obviously they were looking at it more so, hey, this is a game that we really need to win here at home. And the Pirates, to their credit, and use that as some additional motivation. Not that they needed it, but that's what Coach Harrell said post game. And then we start about as fast as you could start. You go right down the field. You have an explosive play in the run game. London Montgomery ripped off about 27 yards, and then you had the big pass play to Anthony Smith, and the Pirates punch it in 6 plays, 75 yards, about 2 minutes, give or take a few seconds, and then you're going down the field again, and you have a throw down the seam, hits Anthony Smith in the face mask. They pick it off. Fortunately, defense came out and got another stop. And then the first play, a jet sweep to Anthony Smith, a little new wrinkle there. And we saw that throughout the game. Pirate receivers, whether it was Anthony Smith, 1 for 45 yards that he took to the house to make it 14-0, or Peyton Mangrum had a carry or two, and then also Brock Spalding was a carrier of the football. Some wrinkles coming off the 16-day break.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to give tip my cap to Casey Keeler, a coach at Temple, because he acknowledged there's some wrinkles they hadn't seen, and he gave his respect for the ECU program in 2025, heading into 2026, hopefully a bowl game in the new year, was well earned by ECU yesterday. And I'll say the changes, the stuff that the offensive staff is doing, the defensive staff is doing, our intensity and our ability to execute reminds me of heading into the Military Bowl a year ago. And I think he was caught off guard, and his staff was caught off guard by that as well. And you haven't mentioned this yet, but the fake punt. I mean, I love having a coach at ECU who rolls the dice and says, "Let's go for it." And that reminds me of the days of Art Baker and Coach Logan and those guys as well. So I would just say we took advantage of our time off. We got our players look really fresh, energized, and we definitely had a better game plan going into the game than Temple did.
Yeah, the Pirates, after those 2 drives that I mentioned, 2 out of the first 3 possessions resulted in touchdowns, led 14-0 just over 5 minutes into the game. And then because of some self-inflicted things there, you have a fumble, and we put the ball on the ground deep in our own territory. Temple, to their credit, punches it in, makes it 14-7, and then they produce another touchdown drive there, I think their first possession of the second quarter, and all of a sudden you're in a 14-14 game. And after making things look so easy, as a coach and as a former player, just the way that can go when things have come so easily. To the Pirates' credit, after Temple made it 14-14 there with 10 minutes to go in the first half, we responded with 2 tremendous drives. Just looking at it, 9 plays, 75 yards. I think that was actually the Temple drive, but 12 plays, 73 yards for ECU, and then another drive of similar length that was 10 to 12 plays. Very, very, very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just when I'm thinking about the game itself and watching it from an ECU's fans' perspective, it was total domination. Even when they tied it up, I wasn't as concerned as I have been over the past 12, 13 years when something like that would happen and we would face some adversity. We seem to tighten up. If anything, we seem to loosen up and just play ECU football. And when you look about the total yards of 614 yards or whatever it is for ECU, and plus we held them to 258 yards. When you look at the total body of work that this coaching staff is delivering right now, this point in the year, we're one of the most dangerous teams in the AAC of the American Conference, but maybe heading into potential playoff berths. And I couldn't be more excited about what Coach Harrell and the staff has done. And I just feel like we have managed this season in a manner that I haven't seen in a long time at ECU, with the ups and downs of the NC State game, the BYU game, you name it, and how we've just responded to adversity. It feels like right now we're getting healthy. We're getting we're creating momentum that we haven't seen in a long time at ECU. And if you remember back to Coach Ruff's probably best team ever, we went up to Temple and just crapped the bed. And this team went up there and they could have crapped the bed easily, and they did not. And couldn't be more excited about the direction of our program right now.
The Pirates really seem to be getting to where they need to be offensively in order to produce what we hope all ends in a title run. You see 614 yards. You mentioned that number a couple times, but then you go back to Tulsa and we rolled up, about 550 or something. So nearly 1,200 yards of offense and well over 600 yards rushing in the last two games. That ground game that looked so poor in the first few weeks of the season has really, really come together. And, hats off to Coach Maddox, offensive line coach, and John David Baker.
Yeah, I mean, Bubba, you and I both know, we talked about this early on. We were going through our lumps and taking our bruises up front. If we trust our coaches and we have the right people in place, they're not going to beat the players down. They're going to build them up, and that's what's happened with O-line. And honestly, I'm shocked that there weren't more penalties on us yesterday, because our offensive linemen were downfield being very chippy over the pile, et cetera, when people were getting tackled. And it made me super happy to just see them just being just dirty and nasty and just trying to just create havoc. And not just on the defense side of the ball, which Coach Aldridge does a great job with, but like watching these guys just pick people off the pile. I'm like, damn, that's ECU football right there. We're Pirates for a reason, and get out of our way. We're gonna beat you up. And this offensive line could have folded with the wrong leadership. And I feel like Coach Maddox and there's a GA who's coaching them as well, and whose dad's a former college football coach. So I think they're getting really good tutelage as we move forward towards the Charlotte game.
We appreciate everyone tuned in here on a Sunday evening as we're talking East Carolina football, and folks chiming in via YouTube. Kenny Curling says, great team win, and the Pirates finally winning a statement game with dominance. No doubt, Kenny. And then he went on to say that Yannick Smith had a nice game after Yannick was really shut down and not involved in the offense from a reception standpoint against Tulsa. Yesterday, he found pay dirt twice and had that. The first one came on a play action on a slant route, and then you had another play action pass right down the middle of the field after the Pirates had just been pounding the Owls in the ground game that went for 60 plus.
Yeah, I think he's averaging yesterday 20 yards per catch. So like, whether the algebra goes backwards or forwards and based on the number of catches, doesn't matter. He was impactful. And you could tell that the Temple staff had prepared for Anthony more than Yannick. And now, Yannick had his couple of games where, as a fan base, we're concerned because NIL, transfer portal, et cetera. But he stuck with it and stuck with the program. And he played his tail off yesterday. I couldn't be more excited for him. But I think it might help some of our fans understand that other teams are scheming the same way we are. They're trying to take people away. So now Anthony takes the top off a couple of times. Now Yannick's open again. Might be kind of a Laverne and Shirley from the 70s TV show showing up. But I'm glad we have so many receivers who are capable of just moving the chains for us.
Yeah, Caton Hauser, I thought he was very sharp. 19 out of 24, 256 yards. And obviously one of those 5 incompletions was the pick that he actually threw a very good ball on to Anthony Smith. And then Anthony very quickly made up for it with the 45-yard jet sweep for a touchdown. But an excellent day for Caton. And then something we haven't talked about, the defense. Evan Simon, much was made, 21 touchdowns, no picks, how improved he was from a season ago. And he undoubtedly is, but East Carolina got after him. Yeah, we only sacked him one time, but you could tell he never felt comfortable, and he threw for 80 yards in the game, 11 out of 20. And we could have very easily picked him off another couple times. But the one time we did get him, what a tremendous diving interception by Jamarly Riddle.
Yeah. Obviously, Jamari is somebody who Pirate Nation's become akin to, and anybody who's a fan of our program realize how good he is as a I guess he's now a true sophomore. Is that right, Bubba?
Jamarly, yep.
Yeah.
He's one that came in and
he burned his red shirt last year, right?
Yep, he's one that came in and made immediate contributions last year as a true freshman.
Yeah, so that's a young man we need to take care of. So if there's any Pirate fans out there right now that have some dollar signs in their bank account, we need to make sure we take care of Jamar to keep him here. But I feel like there's some momentum with our defense right now that's matching the momentum with our offense. So we have the best mix of both worlds. But yeah, the quarterback for Temple's been super successful throughout the year against all the teams they played up to this point, including Oklahoma, you name them. And we got him off schedule really quick yesterday, and you could tell he never felt comfortable delivering a football. And then with that being the case, they're a run-first team by their DNA. When they could not get the football delivered off their platform, it just allowed us to tee off. And I just have to say something about Josh Aldridge and Coach Tesh again. I've talked about them a lot on our shows. But our defense linemen is just damn nasty. And they just get after it, and they just have fun. And I think they don't care if it's a third-string nose guard, the fourth-string four-eye technique, who is in the game. They're relentless. And I love watching them to continue to mature and grow. And that's why I'm excited about, like, the next 4 or 5 games we have in our schedule, and also when we're heading to a bowl game, to see what we can actually do when we just continue to morph towards that nasty East Carolina defense. And hats off to Coach Tesh and Coach Aldridge and everybody else on the defensive staff for getting these guys ready to play.
Yeah, we came into the game yesterday allowing just 17 points per game, and obviously that went down a little after just 14 surrendered by the Pirates yesterday at the link. But earlier you mentioned the fake punt, and then just now you referenced defensive lineman. How about Ryan Roseborough, the local product, transferred back home from Towson? And anytime a big man gets the football, defensive lineman, you think back to the Skip Holtz years. He had a goal line package that involved Linville Joseph. He scored, I think it was maybe against Southern Miss in that big game. But yeah, and just Ryan Roseborough, the difference between, I'm not sure Linville's background there, if Linville would ever carried the football in high school, but Ryan Roseborough had playing 8-man football there in Greenville, and it showed. 21 yards, and he trucked a guy there that probably was about 100 pounds lighter.
So there's a couple of things I want to touch on. I'm glad you brought this up. When that happened, I asked all my friends, all my ECU alumni who are watching the game with us at home, I said, how many fake punts is that this year already? Number one. So maybe it's 3. I think
it's at least 3, because you had the one that was successful against NC State where we were about our own 30 or 35-yard line. You had one, it seems like you had one against Tulane, and then that one yesterday. Yeah. And I'm trying to remember if there was another one.
Well, I mean, first of all, if anybody's questioning Coach Harrell's lineage as far as being the right guy in our program, just look at that. He's rolling the dice. Like Coach Logan said back in the day after the West Virginia loss, at ECU, go for it every damn time. And he has shown, since he took over the program, he's shown the ability to be creative, think outside the box, change practice time. All these things he's done has led to where we're at today. Having Rion Roseborough back there to run the ball. And I just got to say, we couldn't be more blessed to have a better leader of our football program than Coach Harrell right now. And we needed that more a year ago, probably almost 2 weekends ago, than we do now. But I just love the fact that he gives the rest of the offensive staff a chance to take a deep breath and say, we're going to go for it. And when the numbers are right and the angles are right, we're going to run fake punts. We're going to go for it on fourth down. We're going to, take the top off on the offense, and just super excited about what his mentality is, because it matches everything about ECU and Greenville, North Carolina.
Yep, and then he's also run those 2 or 3 surprise onsides. We ran one against Tulane that was successful, that we recovered there and led to 3 points, and then we also tried one against Tulsa.
Yeah, I mean, you have to realize there's a renegade mentality right now, and if we could back up to June and know where we're sitting right now, I think most of our fan base would go, okay, we're in a good spot. But because of the first half mishaps against NC, I call them Moo because they're I don't acknowledge them as a peer of ours, but anyhow, Tulane, and then obviously the BYU stuff that happened. If you were to say, okay, we're sitting here right now, we just went up to Temple and just blasted their butt, and we're faking punts, we're running in arounds to our fastest players on offense, we're doing all these things that matches what ECU's DNA is. I believe most of our fan base would go, this is awesome. That's what we should be about. And so let's just look forward to our next week against UNC in Charlotte and see what happens.
Yeah, one of the things that was impressive yesterday about those drives where the Pirates answered after the Owls made it 14-14 is, I think it was one of those 2 drives in the last 10 minutes of the first half where we ran 12 plays, 11 of them were runs, and then also the fake punt was early in the third quarter, and an excellent point because one of the only things that was a little frustrating yesterday, we had a chance to pin Temple deep right before their 75-yard drive to tie the game at 14, and we had a 24-yard punt. But there, when we had a 53-yard punt, but then they had an illegal substitution that made it 4th and 1 instead of 4th and 6. So that's when we ran the fake. And like Blake said post-game, we went down and capitalized on that. You made it 35-14, I guess it was.
Yep.
And then we kept the foot down, foot on the gas, because from there we had another excellent drive, 75 to 80 yards, actually a 97-yarder that put it away.
Yeah, I need to go back and check. I should have prepared more for this, but I think we ran the ball for almost 360 yards yesterday.
Yeah, that's correct. I got the breakdown right here. 358 for the team. You had something like 8 different guys get carries, but
yeah,
the Pirates were primarily using that 3-headed monster that they have of late. London Montgomery, who ran for 125 against Tulsa, had 14 for 84 yesterday and a touchdown. TJ Engelman, after carrying the ball 10 times against Tulane and Tulsa, had 8 carries for 77 yards. And I love the way he bounced back after, I believe he was the one that fumbled. But Yeah, and that didn't phase him at all. Had several excellent carries after that. Marlon Gunn reached the end zone, had 10 carries for 64 yards, and then Parker Jenkins got in, was able to run it 8 times there in the fourth quarter for 34 yards, a little over 4 yards per carry. So it was a total team effort there with that ground game, having 358 yards without a 100-yard rusher.
Yeah. So if you look at the stats, it's pretty much 7 yards per carry we had. And I know there's been a lot of flack this year. There's been a lot of conversations. We're great Pirate fans, and we haven't been able to run the football. But I want to just again tip my hat to this staff and the people who are working on the offensive line, and the people who are working with the running backs, and the people who are working on the wide receivers, and the wide position with the tight ends, and because it's a team effort, and we've been able to maintain the fact that we're just trying to get better every day in practice, every day in our fundamental drills, every day in inside run on Wednesdays. I think that's when we do inside run. Pass pros on Tuesday, more of a team on team scenario. But you got to tip your hat to the offensive line staff who's created this environment right now. And people can say the opponents have changed, but if we had this chance to mold this group early on, I think we did see similar results in the earlier games that maybe we came up short on. But I couldn't be happier about where we're heading at as far as a balanced offense. Getting 600.
Yeah, 614.
Yeah. So I mean, you gotta be kidding me. That doesn't. It seems to be easy, but it's not easy to do that. And how many times we rolled around with Temple in the past and just came up short, or they just manhandled us. And even back in the rough years, which I don't want to be negative about any time when people were running our program, but we haven't always handled this game as well as we did yesterday. And my hope is this catapults us to a big win next week in Dowdy-Ficklin.
Yeah. It's very easy, like you mentioned, without going back and naming specific instances. But you think back just to the last 15 or 20 years on games that we were favored in, be it at Dowdy-Ficklin or on the road, especially on the road, where if we had won that game, we could have been a division winner and playing in a championship game. So you'd have had potentially more titles than the 08 and 09 championships. But kind of as we're wrapping up this and transitioning into that Charlotte game, a few more comments here from Kenny Curlings on YouTube. He said, after we took control of the game, Temple looked very tired and defeated, and that's what can happen when we play 4 quarters of solid football. No doubt, Kenny. And that was a comment I meant to throw up on the screen a moment ago when we were talking about that fake punt and then answering with the touchdown right after that to make it 35-14. And then the next possession, you go 97 yards when Temple has you backed up. And once we made it 42-14, and that was really probably the final nail in the coffin there, because that was still late in the third quarter.
Well, number one, I have to give Kenny Curlins a high five for joining our show all the time, and I love his feedback. And he's right. We looked like the ECU yesterday that all of our fans, the diehard Pirates, want to see. And when things, like you said, Bubba, our last drive was 97 yards, backed up at the -3, as I used to call it as a coach. And to do that in modern football is tough, even with the passing game and the way they play receivers and the hands and stuff with the defensive backs. We started just beating. I'll just say this, apologize for the kids. We just started beating their ass up. And that was awesome to see as an ECU fan. We got the physicality up front on both sides of the ball. We're a tenacious defense. and our ability to just run the football right at Temple, which is a tough place to play. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yep, kind of that reverse home field advantage, if you will, because the atmosphere is so poor. And just it's mind-boggling to me just how little people in the city of Philadelphia care about Temple football, even when they're good. Pretty much the only time they draw is when they're playing somebody like Penn State, Notre Dame, Navy, somebody like that that's going to bring a good number of fans.
Well,
but Kenny said his only complaint was the announcer on the ESPN Plus broadcast that dropped in Eastern Carolina at least a time or two, and then the camera guys showing what it was Matt Maddox and calling him John David Baker as the telecast was going off the air. And then I believe 15 defensively is Jordy Lowry. You can correct me if I'm wrong there, Jason, but Blake mentioned him specifically in the post game, talking about his quality performance. And don't want to read too much into this here, because this is nothing concrete, but just kind of based on Blake's comments. He was talking about him making a commitment to the team or something of that nature, or making the team first. And I found that interesting, but obviously great news. And then also Kenny went on to say about the fake punts and surprise onsides and so forth, that it reminds him of the Steve Logan years, which is not surprising.
Yeah. So to back up a second on Temple and their atmosphere, over the years when I left coaching, I went to software sales, and Temple's been a client at some other companies. I won't say the name of the companies, but the people who work inside at Temple University were beyond excited about building an on-campus stadium. And I guess the city of Philadelphia blocked it based on zoning and ordinances and easements and all this stuff that gets in the way of a good decision. I feel like Temple would be just like Tulane if they could build an on-campus stadium. So I somewhat feel bad for them, but not so much because they beat our tail so many times in the past. So they're good people. But yeah, Kenny's 100% correct. We have that swagger back. We just need to make sure we pull that momentum into our prep this week, into our prep against UNC, Mecklenburg County, and make sure we win this game Saturday. Because I'll just be honest with you, winning the Temple game was satisfying, but I want nothing more than just beat the hell out of UNC Charlotte this weekend.
Certainly a game that Blake Harrell and his staff and the players have had circled since what transpired down at Jerry Richardson Stadium last year, 55-24, and it wasn't that close, if we're being honest. The 49ers led 55-17, and to their credit, they significantly outplayed the Pirates. As tough as that is for me to say, not going to sugarcoat it, not going to act like certain fan bases do when they lose such a game. But yeah, the Niners had their way with us last year, and there's no doubt we've had this one circled. That is something you have to be careful with. But I think with what we've seen out of Blake Harrell and this staff, I don't think we're going to come out trying too hard and on too much of a high. I think we'll come out much like we did yesterday and just ready to take care of our business. If we just come out playing Pirate football the way we can play, I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, this one's personal. I can tell by what you're saying, Bubba. It's the same way with you and probably Kenny and anybody else who's listening to our podcast. It's inexcusable. Our first two games against Charlotte shouldn't happen. Should never happen. And I'll just say I cannot wait to just beat their ass this Saturday. And we need to do that as a team and as a fan base. It needs to be everybody in the stadium showing up early, creating havoc. So the defense, offense, special teams, and all the stuff we've seen the last couple of weeks as we've turned this season around again. is on display, and I need those people to drive back to Charlotte, being really not you, Bubba, because I know you're close to there, but everybody else needs to be upset and pissed off because we just give them back the butt whipping they've given us, and they've hats off. They have kicked our tails. Even the first year when we lost, was it 13-10 or 10-30?
Yeah, 10-7. But
yeah,
like I mentioned, that one you trailed 10-0 after 3, and they muff a punt that allowed us to get a 5 or 10 yard field that made it 10-7, and then we did have a field goal that could have forced overtime, go wide there with about 30 to 45 seconds remaining in regulation, but that definitely didn't make me feel any better about what happened because we got limited to something like 140 yards of offense, and there's been nothing fluky about it. Like you said, tip your hat to them. They've outrushed us something like 500 to 200 in those 2 games, and a lot of our yards, especially last year, came after the game was long decided because we really struggled to run the football against them, and that's obviously what we pride ourselves on. Running the football and stopping the run, and very, very fired up to see how we handle our business on Saturday.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
I was going to say, so Pirate Nation, that performance those last 2 games against Charlotte's, there's no excuse for it, and we need to make sure that we just rain hell on them on Saturday.
Before we get out of here, very quickly, a rundown of what transpired in the American Conference. And the Pirates are one of 6 teams in this league race. Navy, despite losing yesterday 31-17 at North Texas, they are 5-1, and because of the number of league games they've played, they are still in first place by themselves by a half game. Then you have a 2-way tie there with Memphis and North Texas at 4-1. And then you have the Pirates, Tulane, and South Florida, all at 3-1. So it's really shaped up as a 6-team race, and so much meaningful football across the conference to be played here in the coming weeks.
Just win Saturday. That's all that matters. But is it is the thing. That's the thing. Like Coach Harrell says, the biggest thing is the next thing, and it's beating UNC Charlotte.
Yep. But in addition to that Navy game yesterday, other results this week, you had Memphis. They went down to Houston and took care of business against Rice in a convincing manner, as you would expect the Tigers to do. I think they're ranked 22nd now. It'll be interesting to see where they are this week. And if they take care of business on November 15th, we'll have a ranked Tiger team coming to Dowdy-Ficklin. You had UTSA. They really took care of business. You knew that they were probably going to play well, not necessarily win the game, but they played well and dominated Tulane on Thursday night. Like Kenny mentions, this game for the Pirates is Hall of Fame weekend. You have Shane Carden, Justin Hardy, and then also Dwayne Harris being inducted as football representatives or inductees, I should say, into the Hall of Fame. And then also one score that I did not mention, UConn took care of business against UAB. The Blazers, coming off that win against Memphis, were unable to get a win up in Hartford. But that will do it for this edition of Blackbeard's Alley, a Pirate Football Podcast. We appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll have a Charlotte preview for you this week. We'll also have conversations with former East Carolina quarterback and soon-to-be Hall of Famer Shane Carden, and then also number 17, Dwayne Harris, will join the program. But for my co-host Jason Tyndall, you've been watching and listening to Blackbeard's Alley. We'll talk to you soon, and as always, go Pirates.